This is a police station in the seaside town of Whitley Bay in the northeast of England. It occupies a shop unit within the local retail centre. A frosted glass panel is positioned in the middle of the shop front window to afford privacy to members of the public wishing to enter and to speak to officers. Like its retail neighbours, it offers Monday to Friday 9 to 5 opening times. Outside of this, the public are directed to an external yellow phone with 2 buttons to indicate the nature of their inquiry. This station is situated 100 yards or so from its old site. The old station sits separately from the surrounding streets on its own plot. Built in the Edwardian era, it has an imposing facade and houses its own magistrates' court and cells. Glass bricks convey fortress-like security either to an interview room or cell. The word public is chiselled into the sandstone that sits above the entrance. This building signifies its purpose as upholder of law and order. Built to last, it's been a reassuring presence for the public at the heart of communities for generations. The old station now lays empty and is being converted into new, prestigious, prime real estate residential flats. Visibility has always been important to the police to convey a sense of legitimacy, power and authority on behalf of the public, the state and the Crown. Could these smaller shop-like stations weaken that position? Or might they become more positive, more welcoming and more accessible? In this film and our research, we consider the nature and impact of visible policing, from police buildings to social media, and what this might mean for our perceptions of the police. The visual age, surrounded by images through much of our waking lives. On a scale unimaginable even a few generations ago, we consume and produce images. These shape our political, social and consumer lives and influence the way in which we engage in the world around us. As we gaze on the communities in which we live, we recognise, subconsciously at least, the symbolic nature of the environment around us. Our engagement and interactions with the police are shaped by our visual perceptions of them. For many of us from early in childhood, we become familiar with those images, the cars, the badges, the uniforms and the stations, positively or negatively, give us certain perceptions of the police. Those images perhaps become so familiar to us that they sometimes go unnoticed. But there's far more to the visibility of the police than just bobbies on the beat or patrol cars. From the birth of modern policing in the early decades of the 19th century, how officers looked was a central consideration. At that time, the blue uniform that we often associate with policing was chosen because it distinguished officers from soldiers, who tended to wear red. Policing is continually evolving, of course, and responds to social, political, economic and technological change. For example, with the police uniform, this has led to a shift from blue to black, and from smart collar and tie to practical technical fabrics designed for comfort and ease of movement. The traditional bobby's helmet with its distinctive shape helped officers stand out in a crowd. Alongside having a minimum height requirement, the helmet meant that officers would stand head and shoulders above those around them. It is what some have called the scarecrow function of the police, being there to intimidate and visibly deter criminal and deviant activity, while at the same time providing visible reassurance that the police are there and will intervene where necessary. The police uniform is just one example. Other aspects of police visibility convey a sense of the power and authority of the police and the state. Officers are often trained in drill and take part in parades, ceremonial and state occasions involving flags, badges and symbols that emphasise the authority of the officer and their role as a servant of the Crown. But as we have mentioned, visibility of the police is more than just bobbies on the beat. Our view of policing may of course be influenced by our own personal interactions with police officers, strained community relations, or high-profile stories of misconduct. But what of the other aspects of police visibility that can also change our perceptions of the police? This could be the physical presence of the police in the community as reflected in the architecture and design of a police station, or the images of policing we take from the toys and dressing up costumes of childhood, collecting souvenirs, or by seeing police flags, signs or badges. Increasingly, the police are using social media. By going online, the police extend the reach of their public communication and engagement efforts, in some cases involving the citizen in investigation, detection and crime prevention. These varied aspects of visible policing form a cauldron of visual cues embedded in our social and historical fabric. These prompt us to recognise and process different aspects of policing. Routine practices embed policing into our everyday lives, even if we might only rarely have direct face-to-face interaction with police officers.
This is Pilgrim Street Police Station in Newcastle city centre. Built from stone, it features Roman pillars, griffins and blue lights marking the entrance that would be at home in Gotham City as much as Newcastle. This station is built with civic pride in mind. The date 1930 is engraved proudly on the building that was meant to be here forever. Its intimidating architecture is not by accident, but sited in the heart of the city, it is accessible, a place that people would know. It is a shame, therefore, that this police station now lies empty, abandoned, as the police have moved to a new location away from the busy streets of the city centre, to a quieter part of town, with easier access for police vehicles, but away from the people. We all carry with us images of policing, whether informed by our own experiences, both good and bad, or by what we see of the police. If we are to imagine a typical police station, for example, we might conjure up an image of a blue lamp beside a blue door, like Droylsden Police Station. Droylsden is in the suburbs of Manchester. It no longer has a front counter but acts as a base for officers on duty. It is a very traditional image of the local station, but now closed to the public, as many forces have opted for fewer but larger divisional buildings. The police estate can include an assortment of architectural styles, ranging from Victorian through to the brutalist modernism of the 1960s and beyond. Here on Bonney Street in Blackpool is classic brutalism. The police station sits like a concrete fort looking down on the centre of town. Awaiting demolition, the police have moved on. But for some members of the public who we interviewed, they recall the excitement of its active days. As one person remembered, "When I was a kid, that is where the police used to come purtling out in their black Mariahs when there was a call. So if you were driving down Bonney Street, you had to be really cautious, because the sirens would start going and the shutters would go up and the black Mariahs would come out. And I can always remember thinking it was really exciting." For one member of the public who volunteered to take photos of local police stations for our research, she initially couldn't find any, but then found her local police had moved in with the fire and rescue service. But do police stations matter anymore? Are they used, and do we care where they are located? The closure of the local police station can be seen as a loss, and part of the withdrawal of public services. But the old station was not necessarily loved by all. It's a question of whether its symbolic presence was important, even if it wasn't used by the public. Whilst Bonny Street has closed, a new police station has opened on the outskirts of Blackpool, a shiny new glass box on the edge of town, a divisional headquarters with easy access to the motorway. It's not so easy to get to from the city centre, but following patterns in retail over the last 30 to 40 years, is a move to out of town necessarily a bad thing? Does it just reflect how we live today? The glass in the new headquarters is deliberate, representing transparency between police and community. Blackpool comes under Lancashire Constabulary, but other police services have followed a similar pattern. For instance, here in North Tyneside, Northumbria Police has a glass box headquarters on an out-of-town business park located behind a B&Q retail warehouse, just as the divisional headquarters in Blackpool is alongside an out-of-town Tesco superstore. But such buildings offer flexibility, open plan offices, although the COVID-19 pandemic may have meant more police employees working from home. Yet the nature of police work means there will always be a need to physically go to the office for many. Greater Manchester Police has what feels like a policing campus located out of town, with divisional headquarters and force headquarters sitting next to each other. The buildings are a few years old and are already starting to look a little tired. These business park police buildings are replacing civic centre stations, glass and metal framed properties that can lack some of the traditional features of their predecessors, and are often largely indistinguishable from the call centres, finance companies and other corporations located at the edge of town. Aesthetically, we see the development of buildings that convey a corporate image. These new police stations and headquarters stand apart from the streets and public squares, and do less in terms of displaying a sense of authority and power over the citizen. But there is a counter-argument that the removal of police stations reflects wider social change. That many of the older stations were perhaps symbolically repressive, dark, closed environments, and the new ones are light, accessible and transparent. Architects talk of public buildings needing to be porous, that divide between public and private is indistinguishable. Where these new glass boxes perhaps fail is that public access may not be their primary purpose, and entering a mega police building can look and feel intimidating. Architectural styles reflect the trends of the day. We are not likely to see a new station built the same as in the 19th or 20th centuries. For those managing the police estate, any decision to build anew is a massive financial commitment, anticipating future demands. So flexibility is key, and modern, generic office buildings can offer that. But what do they convey to the public? Some police services have experimented with shop-front police stations, like the station at Whitley Bay, like supermarkets a couple of decades before who moved to megastores out of town, but then realised they needed a high street presence as well, opening up small express or metro stores. But financial pressures on the police post-austerity have meant these shopfront stations are few and far between. And since we started our research, the Whitley Bay station is now currently closed.
Upstairs.
What's that again? I'm Dr. Matthew Jones, and I'm a policing academic at the Open University.
I'm Liam Ralph, and I'm a lecturer at Northumbria University.
Much police business has already gone online, leaving police station front counters a lot quieter or closed. Instead, the police's official website and social media accounts have become the new front counter, and indeed the new beat. We found in our interviews that officers and police staff who use social media are mindful that posts that include an image are much more effective than those that are merely text-based. They therefore use pictures and videos that they have taken when they are on duty and out and about in the community when posting on social media in an attempt to interact with the public.
Inspector Chris Abbott, Place-Based Chief Inspector for West Lancs. We're here at the minute at Fairy Glen. We've seen a massive increase in visitors recently, people coming from outside of the community. We are asking you to please look at the legislation, look at the guidance and act in the spirit of that guidance, and to stay local, stay at home.
Members of the public that we interviewed said that they were more likely to read and engage with police posts on social media if they had included a visual element. For example, pictures of police dogs and horses proved particularly popular. Photographs of officers engaging with the community and updates with mugshots of offenders have proved particularly popular, although some saw potential dangers of using such posts. Similarly, we found that the use of social media in policing is not fully developed. There are still questions to be answered about the best way to maximise the potential of social media in policing, alongside the traditional tangible aspects of police work. On the other hand, members of the public often reported that they felt reassured by content posted by the police. They were pleased to see evidence of police activity and examples of successful police operations. We anticipate that the ways in which the police use social media will evolve considerably in the coming years. One challenge for police officers and police organisations is that not all police business can be conducted virtually. Clearly, policing is and will remain something that is conducted in the physical world. Boots on the ground cannot be wholly replaced with virtual boots on virtual patrol, and a physical presence in the community as well as a virtual presence will remain important.
Can you just pick begin, you mentioned that you've got an object or a picture in mind. Could you just sort of outline what that is, just in broad terms?
It was a whistle, and it was a really old whistle that my granddad had when he was on patrol back in, he retired in 95 and was a police officer. He left as a chief inspector, police officer for 30 years. And I've got his truncheon, handcuffs and whistle.
Oh wow!
For some reason I always loved the whistle.
When you were a kid,
you just see them walking down the street, swinging a little. It's just cool. It was always my favourite out of the three of them.
Out of the three objects, the whistle was the one.
Which is weird because you think it'd put the handcuffs.
Yeah, well,
but I don't know. I don't know. Like this little.
So you now own that, do you? Or
yeah, he's given it to me. It's like sort of passing the torch to the next generation.
It's very nice. Very nice. As well. What made you, of all the things you could have brought along today? I imagine you've been in the police for a little while, maybe, but what made you sort of focus on this particularly?
Well, as I said, this is something that's recently come to our force, and I did the drone course about a year ago, and I really enjoyed it. And as I say, I can see I've always been a bit of a future forecaster. I've always sort of been on the why aren't we doing this and pushing the envelope and whatever. And this is, quite clearly now you look across industry, Amazon, NHS.
Police officers themselves understand the significance of visual symbolism. As with the military, the image of the police is reinforced through various flags, badges and other symbols of authority. Police officers that we spoke to talked about the significance of various items that represent policing. Some talked about an unofficial lapel badge that is not part of the uniform, but which officers often are permitted to wear. It represents the idea of the thin blue line of policing between order and chaos, the officer protecting the community. Yet for the public that we spoke to, it was often interpreted differently. Some associated the Union flag with the far right, while others did not really understand the symbolism at all. Some members of the public associated it with police pride. But the different responses highlight how the visual symbolism of policing can be read differently by different people. Decades of research has revealed that policing is about much more than the physical response to problems of crime and disorder. The visual and symbolic nature of policing should not be overlooked. The police might be leaving behind some established components of police representation, such as the traditional image of the police station, and these might be eclipsed and overtaken by new forms of representation. In contemporary Britain, it makes sense for the police to embrace a shift online. But what this might mean for new forms of visible policing and the implications that this might have socially, culturally and politically for how we think about ourselves and society remains to be seen.